There's one thing that I definitely see in my future here, and that's a place to do metalworking that's not here in my workshop, because this is not convenient at all. I've got my welding machine in here. It's buried in dust. I dug it out because I want to, as the title says, I want to weld together, or at least try to weld together, a bandsaw blade. This is a 3/8 inch blade, fairly thick. It's about, I would say, maybe 30 thousandths of an inch thick. It broke because I cut part of the way through. With my angle grinder, I was making a sharpening jig that would use the angle grinder, and trying it out, and it slipped and cut in a little bit deeper than it should have. It actually cut in when it shouldn't have, and the blade held up well for about a year, because this is more than a year ago that I did that, and eventually it started to crack across, and it just snapped at the end there. I was making a cut and it just stopped. I don't really have anything fancy here to do this. I've got a piece of plywood put in my vise. I'm going to move the flammables out of the way before I get started. But I cut a notch in the plywood to do the welding in. I'm not at all concerned that the plywood might start to burn, because I can always put it out quickly. And I've got my ground clamp here. I'm just going to clamp the blade on this side with the ground clamp. So it's pretty much in the middle of that gap. Then I'm just going to take the other side of the blade and hold that in place with a spring clamp. My welder is a 110 machine. It has 4 heat settings, A, B, C, and D, with D being the hottest. I'm going to try this on A to begin with. I've got a little bit of leeway with this blade. It's 120 inches long, but my saw will take down to about, an inch or so less than that if I have to. So I can afford to make a couple of tries at this. The feed rate, I usually keep that at 2.5, whatever that is. I've used this machine for, I don't know, about 12 years. I don't use gas with it. This is flux core wire. I find that works well for everything I do. The only difference with gas shielding is you'll get a cleaner weld. Flux core will actually give you better penetration, and you'll be able to weld thicker steel with the flux core without gas, actually. And it'll also work outdoors in the wind. The wind can't blow away the flux shielding that you get from this wire. Okay, not bad. I think it's a good weld. The thing about this is hardened steel. Hardened steel doesn't, you're not actually supposed to weld hardened steel like this. You're supposed to anneal it first, and then weld it, and then reharden it. But who's got time for all that garbage? It's just a bandsaw blade after all. I think I'm good. It's not, 100% filled in there, but I'm going to grind it off, and then I'm going to put it on my saw, and I'm going to try it out. Alright, I got to move the bandsaw out, and the door won't open because it hits the air cleaner. I'm trying to rethink a different arrangement for the shop. I want to change a few things in here, and I don't think that this is going to be here in a few months. I know the air cleaner will stay there, but the bandsaw is going somewhere else, I think. I got this cheap air hose I bought. It wasn't cheap though, it was 40 bucks, but it's rock hard, especially out here in the workshop where it's not, warm. It's too hard. It's a real nuisance. $40 down the drain as far as I'm concerned. Here's the thing, kids, always unplug your tool before you do any major service on it. I built this bandsaw a few years ago. I've been using it ever since. It took a long time to build. Very complex project. It's covered in detail on my website. I made a video showing it in the beginning, but the video was terrible. Really didn't turn out well. I made subsequent videos showing more features of it, but nothing really, it's not really a build project for, other people to build. There's no plans for it or anything like that. It's too individual for that. The frame is all made from metal, and just the rest of it here is made from wood. It has some nice features though, including this bucket that catches all the sawdust from the saw. It's got a single catch up here, and then the whole thing opens up and hits the air cleaner still. I've got a crank on the back here that will adjust the tension. I'll lower the blade now. This is the blade that I cut in half in an earlier video, and I use it fairly often. It's good because it's got very few teeth, so it's good for rapidly cutting thicker material roughly. And I really should have moved this out a little bit further. Get that out of the way. This is held up perfectly, by the way. It did no damage to the blade whatsoever. Still fine. I've used it a lot. So I've got my other one freshly fixed. Make sure that the teeth are pointing down. That is important. And get it put on here. I don't expect that this is going to be a repair that will, be as good as the blade was before, but it's going to, if I don't try it, I'll never know. I mean, what have I got to lose? The blade is already broken. I crank up the tension again, and that will be the first test. It's holding pretty good tension. Let's see how it's tracking. Looks pretty good. Okay, I've got to plug back in. I'll turn it on. A little bit of ticking. It might be because the back of the blade has a little bit of a gap there. I don't know if that's going to make that much of a difference. The only way to find out is to do, that's the original weld there. I thought that was mine. I thought that the guy actually got better. The only way to find out is to do some cutting. Do that. This is just MDF. This is a fine-tooth blade. So really never be used for thicker stock. That's working well. I'm happy. So yeah, it looks like it works well. I want to point out something else that I did with this saw before I wrap this up. This is a homemade saw. Everything on here is homemade except for the blade, of course, and the motor. The wheels, I originally had bicycle inner tubes on here for tires. That's Matthias Wandel's method. I decided that it was probably worth trying out something different, and what I did was I put silicone on the wheels instead. Not a very thick coat. It's clear, 100% pure silicone. I smeared it on, like I tubed it on, then I took my finger and I smoothed it out, as smooth as I could. It's not really that important that it be perfectly smooth, but that's months ago, and I talked about it on my forum on my website, and it's held up amazingly since then. Now the advantage is, of course, that you don't have to buy inner tubes, which can be tricky to find the right size. You might go through 2 or 3 different sizes before you find a fit. Also, The inner tube, when it stretches around the wheel, gives a place for the dust to collect, and I showed that on the website. If you want to see that, you would have to periodically take the tire off and clean out that dust, because it can throw things out of balance eventually. I've got one other thing I'd like to do, and you can see it right there. I want to loosen this up to take the board out. And when I made this originally, I made the handle this long, obviously. I found that it's really a lot longer than it needs to be. I'm going to cut about 6 inches off of here and then reattach the cap on the end again while I've got the welder, out and plugged in. Already that feels a lot better to use, shorter, gives you less leverage, but you really don't need a lot with a vise like this. The original way that I put these caps on the end was, this is a larger pipe that I cut to this length, and then I heated it up with a torch and I pounded it right onto the end of the pipe. So I got an interference fit here. When it cooled down, it shrunk back and it really clamped on there tight. What I'm going to do to get it off is I'm going to make a little bit of slit here, and that should free it up. Then I can slip it onto the end of this and then weld up that seam again with the clamp tight together. And then when that shrinks, that should tighten it onto the pipe too. That should just pop right off. Put that on. You can see my breath in here is pretty cool. And then I think just to keep it steady, I'll wind the vise in. And now once again, I've switched cameras to my older one, so I won't destroy my new one. Hopefully it turns out. I did a video with this camera before. This is my old Nikon Coolpix one. All of my very first videos were shot with this. Okay, well that's done. Looks good. I reviewed the footage on my little camera there, and it didn't look like it came out. But here it is immediately after the weld. And here it is after I cleaned it up with the wire brush. Anyway, it's on there to stay, and it looks good, and it works better. Having that big long handle really wasn't convenient at all.